everybody. It's the day before Easter, and just wrapped up reading Tales of Earthsea by Ursula Le Guin. I really liked The Wizard of Earthsea. That was a fast, entertaining book, and this is no different. We're going back to Earthsea. That's the place where Ged was archmage for many years, and we're going to learn a lot more about the history and lore of this world. Now, this book has 5 different tales in it, and it is quite a bit different from The Wizard of Earthsea in the respect that this world isn't nearly as stable as it was in the time of Ged. And by that I mean that, for example, I think every island has seemingly its own king or warlord that's trying to gain more power and territory and wealth for himself or herself. So this world is a much more chaotic. The wizards aren't really to be trusted, and many times they're taking advantage of the people as much as the kings and rulers, if not equally so, because many of these rulers that have money employ a wizard, and the wizard just does whatever he or she can to enslave the people to make his master or her master, wealthier and much more powerful. So it's a darker time, the time that was before Ged. One of those stories we learned about Otter, and Otter eventually becomes a wizard on Roke. He plays a part in the founding of the school, and he is the wizard that actually began the tradition of having the young wizards tell him their true name before they gain entry into the school. I don't know if you remember that scene or not from Wizard of Earthsea, but the wizard at the door there, asked Ged, "You can come in, no problems. You just got to tell me your true name." And if you remember, Ged kind of sat out the door for, I think it was a better part of a day before he finally resigned himself to the fact that he was going to give his name to the wizard there guarding the door so he can get into the school. I find that kind of interesting, because here the school is trying to attract young wizards so they can develop their skills so they can go back into the world and make the world a better place. But the very first, you have to pass this little test, is this wizard who's trying to gain power for himself going to put himself in a spot where he's going to be vulnerable, before even entering the school? Because if you're a young person and you have some aptitude towards magic, do you really want to give your true name away to somebody you don't know at this school? Because that person could be trying to put one on over you, so they can gain some control, some power over you. Kind of an interesting dynamic there, But anyway, as I said, Ged makes a short, brief appearance in this novel, and then he's out of the story. There's a story about Ogion, or Ogion, I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. That's Ged's master, his teacher on Gaunt. And we also learn more about Ogion's teacher, who also lived on Gaunt, on that mountain. I liked Ogion in the first book, The Wizard of Earthsea. It was fun to see him back in this book, and you read more about him. It's a short story. I think it's one of the shorter stories of the 5, but definitely adds some more depth to this novel, and it was fun to read. There's a short love story. Ursula mentioned in the foreword that she didn't put any time frame of when this love story happened, because she says love stories are timeless. That's part of the reason why people love love stories. Take, for example, Romeo and Juliet. It's a tragedy, but it's a love story too. And really, that type of story can happen at any point in history, or the future for that matter, because love is love, but it's the circumstances around how two people fall in love and how they live their lives that make it a little bit more interesting. So there's a love story in here. It's not I'd say it's along the lines of kind of a Romeo and Juliet in one respect, because it's starts out as being kind of a tragedy, because these two people are being pulled apart in separate directions in their lives, but it's not like Romeo and Juliet, because they don't kill themselves and they actually live together and love each other. It's got a kind of an interesting ending to it. But anyway, there's a story about a dragon, and Ursula warns us in the foreword that, be wary of dragons, because we don't always know what they're about, and nobody can understand what their reasons are for, and that was kind of a fun little story too to read. So I think it took me about 3 or 4 days to read. It was a good book. I think Ursula does a really good job about developing her stories. That's just my opinion. I think she gives enough detail into the stories where you're like, okay, I can kind of understand where this is kind of going. There's enough twists and turns where she keeps you in the dark enough too, where you're like, kind of wondering where the story's going. So it has that nice balance, between revealing itself but also keeping itself a mystery. And after I got done reading this book, I have more questions about Sea too. Some of the stuff that's going on. So I might actually pick up some more of her books about Sea and read them. But anyway, if you do decide to read this book, make sure you read the foreword and also the back of the book, because that will tell you a little bit more about what's going on in Earthsea and what's going on in Ursula's mind. Because she explores the question, why do we read fiction? Why do we always want to go back to the same stories and reread them in some sense? She mentioned, Bilbo Baggins in the Shire, and she alludes to the fact that, Bilbo's always going to be in the Shire for us. Our lives change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Tragedy can strike our lives. Certainly good things happen to us too, but at the same time, we want to have that place we go to where we can kind of rest our heads, so to speak, where things don't change, and that's where we can do that in books. The Wizard of Oz, it's always going to be there for us. I know it's not a book, it's predominantly known as the movie, but you can always go back to Oz and watch the story of Dorothy again. It gives us comfort in going back to these stories. But anyway, Ursula Le Guin's Tales of Earthsea, really good book. Hope you read it. Enjoy.